Yeah, so thank you for coming to this. It is an ADHD talk. I will, as you see the squirrel there, commonly the international recognition of somebody that's probably going to chase that squirrel and guarantee it will happen a couple times, but I've timed this for maybe 35 minutes, so knowing that we'll probably hit the 3-hour mark at some point. So thank you for coming. How many of you have been diagnosed with ADHD? Excellent, my people. How many of you, right, yeah, that's right. How many of you think you have, but you've never kind of gone through that diagnostic period? Okay, yeah, all right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be talking about my own personal journey. So this is my journey. I will talk a lot about the things that have happened to me growing up and that led to there. And I am always a emotional person, so if I do break down into tears, just look away. It's okay. I won't take it too personally. And then also, I will have some statistics that I'll pull in, and that'll be kind of woven in throughout this as I kind of tell the story, and we'll hopefully end up at where we are trying to get to at the end. If not, again, you're the one that chose to come to an ADHD talk, not me. I just chose to give it. That's really it. So really, it's not my problem. For some of you, you will have that aha moment along the way. Which is really going to be two different moments. I don't actually see anybody in here that knows that I know personally, so that means they won't have their aha moment will be, that explains everything. Yours will probably be, that's why he continues to pace, that's why he's fidgeting, or also it will be, that could be also explained why you might have some of the things that kind of come up and you think about, and the ultimate goal is just to share my story and open up for conversation, and also to bring a lot of this to light for you, hopefully, and that it is something that can help you in your journey. If not, that's totally fine. I'm the one that's up here. So either way, I enjoy this. I love this journey for both of us, and we'll get started. So how many of you are introverts? Okay, wow, half the room. How many of you, I'm going to assume the other half are extroverts, or at least some in between of that. How many of you wish that you could just tell people to leave you alone and to let you just do your own thing? Yeah, okay. How do you do that? Like, how do you, do I just want to be myself, that. That's not me. I am an extrovert to the T at the end. The entire bit of being an extrovert. There are definitely moments where I'm like, okay, leave me alone, but that's usually like when my dogs or when my kids when they were younger trying to bother me when I'm in the bathroom. There are times that are meant to be alone. Other than that, I want to be around people. It's for me, it is very much this, I want to be where the people are. And if you didn't know you were coming to a potential musical, joke's on you. So, but for me, it is, I want to be around people. I enjoy that interaction, the people, whether it's a hug, I love to give hugs, whether it's just the interpersonal conversation, finding out what you enjoy and what is it that kind of makes you tick. My name is Jeremy Meiss, as he said. I am, he said, DevRel and developer experience at OneStream Software. I'm also the organizer for DevOps Days KC. So if you want to come to Kansas City, would love to have you. So check into that. So anyways, so we're going to kind of go through this. We're going to go on a journey. And since, the organizers told me I could, like I said, talk as long as I wanted, then, this is going to be a journey for all of us. Danny Donovan, if you have not seen any of the stuff that Danny has done, you can find it's ADHD-fueled.com. She has done a lot of some really great articles, written some self-helpy kind of books, done a lot of graphics and such. But this really, I think, lays out the type of storytelling that we're going to get to right now. Eventually we'll end up where we want to get to, but there's going to be a lot of things around and around. So there evidently wasn't enough seats for them to sit. Sorry. I did say there was a squirrel in the room, so, but I do need to make this disclaimer before I go any further. I am not a doctor. I did not sleep in a Holiday Express last night. So what I'm sharing are, like I said earlier, my own personal experiences. And your mileage may well vary, and that's great. This is mine, and hopefully it's something that we can continue to talk about. So I don't think it's a secret to say that COVID sucked. In so many ways, but really that first year where we were in so many, like, we're kind of confined to our homes. We're kind of confined to a lot of separation, and you know, we couldn't really go anywhere, and if we did, you had to be like 6 feet of separation, and there was just this separation kind of anxiety that was there. And for me, like, the only real contact you would tend to have was with people that you had requested to come to your home to drop off food off, and then when these food apps, started doing the no contact mode, and then they kind of saved you from that awkward, like, do I reach now or do I let you set it down? Like, it's just that interaction. And I'm probably kind of describing what an introvert really enjoyed about some of that, of, hey, I don't have to, stay away from me. I don't like people. But that was definitely not me. I think when I'm around people, it's very rare that my battery gets discharged, is a good way to put that. My social meter never really runs dry. So to tell you a little bit about me and kind of this journey for me as I think about technology, I'm a child of the mid-'70s. I know that, it doesn't look like it, and the blue hair helps, but yes, I was born in the mid-'70s. So that means I grew up knowing about, like, and using all of these types of things. Some of you probably resonate like, oh yeah, no, I remember that. Others of you are like, I think I saw that on a History Channel. But it, just seemed for me, and I think for a lot of those in my generation, that we really took to technology easily. Things just kind of came kind of, we could program the blinking VCR clock without really thinking about it. There was a lot that I could focus on, but reading for me was, that's something I could do for hours. Other things I could, I was never really a big gamer. I would just play for about 20, 30 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go do something else. But reading, I was all in. And I could do that for days on end. I mean, there were times I would go to bed and turn off the light, grab a flashlight, and proceed to read. And then when that book was done, I would grab another book. And then I would grab another book. And then it would be like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, so I would just get up. And I could do that 2 days in a row without going to sleep. Reading for me, it was it. I read everything I could get my hands on. Anyone remember the Pizza Hut awards certificates back in the 80s of like, all right, if you read a certain number of books or if you just said you read the books, you got the free pizza? I might have probably contributed to the fact that became not really a thing anymore, because I read so many books in one summer that I had free pizza certificates out, the proverbial wazoo, whatever that is. Pizza Hut didn't necessarily ignite my desire to read, but it didn't hurt it any. But some of my earliest memories were really going to the library. I would check out books. We would actually take a laundry basket to the library. Every 2 weeks, we would fill it to the brim. And I've never seen to this day librarians be so excited to see somebody walk in with a laundry basket. And I would read all the books, bring them back, and that was a rinse and repeat in the laundry basket. It was what I did. I enjoyed that, I would obsess over reading books. And then computers, that was another thing that I could mess around with for hours. My choices of books then started to look a lot more like things like this. Some of you also were like, oh yeah, great, I remember it. Yeah, I mean, I even read Small Talk, and Lotus 1-2-3 was a banger of a book back then. Not a software package, it really didn't do great at that, but it was a banger of a book. And early, 80s, my uncle, he worked for a computer company that provided IT systems to the government, and so let me mess around with a lot of the systems. And so that, the top left, there was the K Pro 2. The one on the right was the Compact Pro Portable. Yes, that was a portable. You could put the keyboard up on top of it, and then it had a handle to carry it around. It weighed about 30 pounds, but it was portable. And then, the IBM PCXT was the first real computer that I could call my own. I tore it apart, formatted it accidentally back when DOS used to let you do DEL space period and not yell and scream at you when you did so. Yeah, had to rebuild that a few times, but that was computers for me. I did it. Loved it. And prior to the summer of '84, I'd been going to a private school, but in 4th grade, my parents took me and my sister, who was 2 years younger than me, took us out of that school, and they started homeschooling us. This might be the first moment for some of you that you go, that explains it. That's why. Actually, my friends who normally would be in here would be like, yes, that's the point. But the stated reason of why we were kind of pulled out of school and moved to homeschooling was that they felt it was their responsibility as parents to teach us. It was very much a religious-based decision for them. It wasn't until later in life that, really in my early 30s, that I would actually come to find out that the contributing factor to them beginning to explore options was because I was struggling to focus. I was a bit hyper, trouble, making friends. I would, get picked on due to all of those things, and those were all symptoms of something else. There was this one story that kept repeating later in life that stood out as kind of this early memory that I had, which was one of the last ones at that school. And no, it was not the story of my first kiss in 3rd grade with Heather at the high school basketball game. This private school was a K through 12, so, as 3rd graders, we could go and watch the games. And then immediately afterwards, after we kissed, she put her head through the bars of the upper and looked down and got her head stuck. Both of those, neither one of those actually had anything to do with each other. That's the story I tell myself. But the story is really of the first half of 3rd grade before the Christmas break when, playing kickball at recess. That was the thing we did. And there were me and these other 5 guys that we were always a team. Whenever it happened, we were the team and it was against anybody else. And we would play against, kids that were older that also for some reason had the same recess as us. 5th and 6th graders that had the same recess. And we would always win. Us 6, we would beat all of them. That was our thing. Every single recess. Loved it. And then the winter break came along and suddenly I was told that I wasn't on their team. And then I was also told that I'd never been on their team. And why would they have me, a kid who had glasses, and why would I be on their kickball team? Kids can be really cruel. And this repeated itself for many weeks until I finally just stopped asking. I just was like, okay, fine. I found something else to play. How many of you have ever played tetherball? Okay. How many of you have ever played tetherball by yourself? Yeah, it's a special skill that Napoleon Dynamite demonstrates here. I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD then because my, this was the early 80s. It was still kind of a new thing. My parents, for many reasons, believed ADHD wasn't real. Still to this day, even they have that opinion. They really felt it was an excuse for parents to medicate their children so that they could, take care of them, that they could deal with them by just medicating them, and that was just what they did. And so they said, no, ADHD doesn't exist, no. So they started, homeschooling, which did kind of dovetail nicely with, tech and computers and my obsession with them and in reading, and I excelled in that structure of really one-on-one kind of interaction and learning and having real, okay, we're going to learn for this period and we're going to do this. We'd have our schoolwork done by noon, and then I could go, do whatever, come home by the time the lights go, or, the street lights come on. That was the thing. We did that. Some of you remember that. Again, there were symptoms, but there was attempted mitigation through life. All right, so back to COVID. After about a year of the lockdowns, this would be in the summer or spring of 2021, a few of my buddies and I decided that we needed to get away, so we were going to go camping in Colorado and camp for 3 nights or so in early May of 2021. Now, before that had happened, my mental state really had started to get progressively worse. I know some of you, you can relate with that. There's a support group for people that know me that are like, yes, we know that you needed to get away. And that medication was something that really helped, but none of you saw me before, so yay. Anyways, so we decided to go camping in Colorado. My mental state before, when you think about back at the beginning of my talk, COVID had really done a number on a number of different people. I don't think anyone was untouched in the mental impact of that. During that first year, many people I know, oddly enough, a lot of them were in developer relations, my kind of chosen field. They found out and started posting that they'd gotten diagnosed with ADHD and that they were in therapy. And for me, it was something I was really excited for them, that they had figured out something for them in their life that they could now kind of deal with. And I would also say to myself, it's really odd that I'm not like them, isn't it? Yeah. So anyways, my worsening mental state. I had begun noticing that I was more irritable with my family, or at least they informed me of that on numerous occasions in many different ways. I was losing my train of thought. I was finding it really hard to focus, even not being able to find a lot of the words to say something where it would be like right on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't get to what I was trying to say. It was right there. And so finally I got concerned enough that I said, okay, I'm gonna go to the doctor. This was May of 2021. I told the doctor, what I was experiencing. She, of course, mentioned that it really could be any number of things, and so that they were going to start with doing some blood tests. They would go from there. And then I heard back from the doctor later that day. As I was literally finalizing the camping trip to Colorado, I remember the call very clearly. I was actually looking at some campsites and seeing what I could get reserved and starting to figure out the things that was going to take place in the next couple days. And the nurse gave me the results. And they weren't great. In fact, they were not good at all. Basically, each of the specific, important blood tests that they run have baselines for what, they should be. And then anything that's above that, that's in that's green. Anything that's above that baseline or below that baseline is red. I had no greens. In fact, everything was red. And it was all well below. It wasn't above, everything was well below. Everything from white blood count to the red blood count, the oxygen, hemoglobin was, if you know anything about it, my hemoglobin was a 4. And it should be the lowest it really should be is 10. I was at 4. Not good. And she said that I had iron deficiency anemia. And then I needed to get on a high dose of iron. And then come in for some more tests in a few days. That they'd identify, take tests more, and then identify kind of what the next thing was going to be. Now again, I'm not a doctor, but I do know that they weren't good. And I knew that at that point. But, I said, I was thinking about, okay, yeah, white blood cells, all those things really make a difference for how you function. And help carry oxygen and deal with the different infections you might have, which of course in a pandemic where oxygen and infection was big, they're important things to have. But I thought it really wasn't. I could still do what I was going to do. So I said, okay, good. So I'm glad I got the results. I'm getting ready to leave to go to Colorado, go camping trip in the mountains of Colorado. Can we wait a week? And her response was almost verbatim, no, you should not go to Colorado. You will end up in the hospital. Because if you know anything about the fact that I'm living in Kansas, which is about 800 feet, Colorado, where I was going to be at camping, was at about 9,300 feet. There's something called oxygen, which is very important, and it's thinner the higher you get. If the red blood, basically I would have been in the hospital very soon because my blood would, yeah, that's a technical term, yeah. Now, me in the mountains, I mentioned I was in Kansas, they're my happy place. And they've been that way for a while. I grew up, like I said, Kansas. My only experience really with mountains was the Appalachians and the great, Smoky Mountains in the east. That's where we used to go and visit family growing up. So I saw, mountains, but I'd never really see a real mountain in person until like 1998 when I traveled to Colorado with some friends for a conference, to a college conference. That was my first experience, and I was like in complete and total awe. I was hooked, and since then, so the last 25, 26 years, I've traveled west more than I've traveled east, and seen more mountains than I'd previously ever thought possible. In fact, this is a picture from the top of Mount Elbert, which is the tallest mountain in the American Rockies. Absolute amazing view. Another view here of that same mountain. I've probably taken more pictures of mountains than I've taken of people in the last probably 10 to 15 years, or at least my pictures tend to have a lot more people, a lot more mountains in them than they don't. So people are really just kind of an aesthetic to the picture of the mountains. Don't tell anyone else that. But I got really emotional when, after time of COVID and seeing my first mountains, Mount Rainier, from a plane in October 2021 was the first time I had seen a mountain since COVID. Yeah, so back to the call with the doctor. I was in shock. I'd been planning this kind of moment, this mountain trip with my buddies for months, was literally leaving in a few days, and now I had to, after a year of dealing with everything that we'd been dealing with, and then my, own mental state of all of that, and as an extreme extrovert, like it was not pretty. So after getting on the phone, I sat dumbfounded for a few moments, and then I bawled. I bawled like a baby, because everything was just, hitting all at once. I was devastated. Now, luckily, my friends who were, they were really understanding, suggested we go the Ozarks in Arkansas instead, and we'd make the most of it, which I was thankful for that. We had a great time, but it really wasn't the same. I mean, as great as that looks, who wants that when you can have that? So, but my doctor did, after I got back from camping, doctor referred me to a bunch of specialists, did go through a bunch of, I went and saw a lot of the gists, like the urologist, the neurologist, the neuropsychologist, the gastroenterologist, the hematologist, the oncologist, the geologist. All of those were, and I saw many of them, quite a few times. I had my blood drawn, I was poked, prodded, got an endoscopy and a colonoscopy because, why not? I am a rock star. For some of you, now you're going the geologist joke. There you go. That was that. Yeah. All sorts of other tests to kind of figure out what was going on. There had to be a bleed somewhere that was causing that, but they couldn't find anything. It wasn't until a couple years later that they figured out that I had a hiatal hernia that had been causing something, and had to have that deal with. But that's a whole other story. I'll have to figure out some way to make into a tech talk. But I didn't have any of those normal symptoms that you would have. So the only thing was really to kind of continue consuming vast amounts of iron, which, iron supplements was great. Also the more vegetables, green vegetables, eat your vegetables, kids, or take something that will help it. But really the next step was to wait and get to the neurologist after going through all those others. Finally, after a while, I eventually did get, I think it was about 8 months, it was about 6 months that I finally was able to get into the neurologist and neuropsychologist, excuse me. And after doing that, went through the tests, about a month later came back in, was informed that yes, I did in fact have ADHD, and I had likely been undiagnosed as a child. I chuckled to him. I said, that was never going to happen. It wasn't undiagnosed, it just was ignored. The definition from the CDC on ADHD is it's a mental condition characterized by persistent difficulty in maintaining attention and concentration, is frequently accompanied by hyperactive and impulsive behavior. So that's the official kind of designation. It's a condition that affects how different brain areas develop and work together. ADHD does start in childhood, but many people don't get this diagnosis until they're teenagers or adults. We'll come back to that bit here in a bit. People who have ADHD, they are neurodivergent. That really just means their brains develop and work differently than people who are neurotypical. So again, these are terms that have been identified to really identify what the difference is. It just means that some brains are developed one way and work as some expect, and others work the way they don't expect them to. But those symptoms, attention deficit for ADHD, revolve around this issue called executive dysfunction. So what that comes down to is executive functions help you manage focus, concentration, emotional regulation, impulse control, and self-motivation. Now, healthcare providers use the guidelines from the American Psychiatric Association, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 5th edition, again, another riveting read if you're looking for one, that help diagnose ADHD. It is a diagnostic standard that does help ensure that everybody that's diagnosed has a consistent set of parameters. And so on these two, there's one that says, they have to have, six different, they have to have multiple of these for at least 6 months, and that they need to kind of impact the way that you're able to function. So there's a big list, and I will be sending out, I'm going to post my slides that will have all of this information as well. So you'll be able to go and read into some of the stuff. There are 3 subtypes of ADHD. So when you get diagnosed with ADHD, they're going to say something like, you have ADHD with a focus or a emphasis on inattentive or hyperactive, impulsive, or mixed. You can have something that kind of goes on the both. Now, cis females aren't as likely to have hyperactive, impulsive symptoms. That means that they're less likely to have the hyperactive, impulsive, or mixed subtypes. And cis females are more likely to receive their diagnosis as adults than cis males. We'll get to why in a second. It is also important to note that ADHD symptoms really can vary between individuals and may present differently between, in males and females themselves. Now, with more common symptoms, more visible that are in men and boys, they get diagnosed more often. And those behaviors are often considered more socially acceptable for them than cis females. And so they tend to suppress or hide them to fit in better, and they don't get diagnosed. Culture, society has a really bad track record with that. Telling men, that cis males, boys, that it's okay to, it's expected to act this way, but cis females, you have to act this way. You can't express emotion, and yet we see what's happening with people that are in leadership being emotional. It's culture has done that, and it's a big disservice. So I want to say that. With the research, we know most studies don't take equal sample sizes. So if they even include those that have been assigned female at birth, even if they're included, it's not a comparable size that they would for anyone else. Inattentive symptoms in cis females with ADHD are more likely to occur in structured in educational environments, such as college, which may also delay the diagnosis as well. cis females are less likely to outgrow ADHD, which you can outgrow ADHD, but cis females are less likely to do so. About 60% of cis females have ADHD that continues into adulthood, compared with only about 30% of men. Some of us are like, yep. People who outgrow it usually still have some symptoms, but they don't fall into the ability to be diagnosed in that way, because it doesn't hinder them as much, because they're not as severe and they don't meet that criteria. Cis males and females also show different patterns of comorbidity, which is when another condition occurs alongside ADHD. And so cis males are more likely to have externalized disorders, such as substance misuse, conduct disorders, antisocial personality disorders, which are very externally evident. Cis females are more likely to have internalizing disorders, so things like anxiety, depression, somatic symptom disorders, eating disorders, but more cis females struggle with an internalized sense of impairment that affects that sense of self and qualitative life management skills that cis males are able to get out, because it's more acceptable to express them publicly. Oddly enough, cis men generally don't lack this sense of impairment and automatically assume they're doing just fine. I think we can all say that's a big joke, but yay. In gendered studies that have been done, they've only really documented two genders, girls and boys. So girls in their studies are often misdiagnosed and treated for anxiety and mood disorders as the primary diagnosis, ignoring what the other diagnosis can be. While boys with ADHD often exhibit hyperactivity and impulsivity, girls may be more likely to have inattentive symptoms, which can be less disruptive and therefore less likely to be noticed, again, as they're less presenting outwardly. It can lead to them being overlooked or misdiagnosed with other conditions, again, such as anxiety and depression. In recent years, there has been a kind of a significant increase in adult ADHD diagnoses. One study found that more than half of adults with ADHD receive their diagnosis in adulthood. This growth can really be contributed to a number of different factors. But what's interesting here is that, in Finland, this was a study that was done. I don't know that I actually mentioned that in here. This was a study. This was the CDC. So this was. More likely to be aged. 84% of those that had taken the survey were more likely to be adults than aged less than 50 years. But they were also less likely to have a bachelor's degree higher. They also fit certain cultural backgrounds, and that more likely to have household income that was below a certain standard. And so they're starting to see more of an adult onset being a very interesting thing to look at. As more research has emerged on ADHD, a greater recognition is that it can persist into adulthood. The stigma that is associated with a lot of mental health conditions has decreased, which is part of these factors that have made it, this growth of the diagnosis, encouraging more to seek help, receive a diagnosis. For myself, I know, and I'm not going to ask the question, but I know for me, it was a lot more, I'll say it was more accepted to go and receive that diagnosis and to talk about the fact that, hey, I'm really struggling in this area, whereas, years before it wouldn't have been. And so we're seeing a lot more of that. And then, improved access to mental health services has made it easier for individuals to receive kind of that evaluation diagnosis. At the same time, the number of people that are not being served because of the way our health system is broken and has been broken for so long, it is also definitely affecting our ability to understand the mental health and to treat mental health for everybody. And so it tends to be those that are more privileged than others that tend to get that diagnosis. The expanded criteria for ADHD also has made it more inclusive, which is good, and it has potentially led to that increase. So as you test more and as you start to see what more affects, it's obviously going to rise. Some experts also suggest that a lot of the societal changes, such as, we're a lot more as a society, just look at TikTok and some of those others, like instant gratification, and that short span kind of starts to train us, and we think about that more, and so it does, the increasing demands of modern life, all of those things do present, ADHD presents a little bit more in those situations. Now, COVID-19 also has had an impact on ADHD. So the University of Helsinki, they found that their ADHD cases doubled during the pandemic. The largest increase was in cis females ages 13 to 30 in comparison, and that remote learning demanded a lot more executive function, which we don't do a lot of teaching of executive function, whether that's regardless of if it's because of neurodiversity or neurotypical. We just don't. We don't teach a lot of the really good ways to function, and so it presented that way. So back to me. My diagnosis, of course, it wasn't really a surprise because, as I'd mentioned before, to my parents, ADHD was a myth, and so, just an attempt by Big Pharma to make lots of money and get people addicted. They would also use that same excuse during, the last few years, and, based on whatever they would read, as is the case. But given I was homeschooled, for someone with ADHD, those short classes, no homework, context switching, and time to either go outside or later, get a job when I was, 16 in the afternoons. It was a dream. That accommodation themselves were baked into my learning, and so it was very advantageous for my neurodiverse brain that I didn't really realize, but it was giving me some great ways to learn. For example, I remember fondly working at a bakery where I got to chat with a lot of senior citizens, so it was that really good personal interaction. Bakery was in this older, elderly, kind of wealthy neighborhood who were just thrilled to have someone that would express interest in their stories, and I just, of course, loved to talk and hear and listen to them, and hearing all their different stories of the wagons going west and who on the Donner Party was really responsible for everything. That's an old joke for those of you who don't know who the Donner Party is. It was anyways. So my ADHD diagnosis, it made a lot of sense to me. As I look back at my life, I was starting to kind of get that my diagnosis really, as I shared it, got this response from a lot of my friends. Was like, yay, you're one of us. And I was like, oh, okay, I've never really been a part of that big of a group before. That's awesome. But the doctor suggested that I would benefit from some medication to get with my primary doctor to identify what would work best. I did. The results for me were almost immediate. I talked to some of my friends going, this is how I'm supposed to feel? I'm supposed to function this way? Being able to focus on something and, this is how it's supposed to look. It was a new experience. I'll just say it was definitely a new experience. As I adjusted to the medication along with, work and life and such, I had to start all over with understanding how to function. I had, building up a lot of the things and part of the way that I worked and the way that the chosen careers that I'd had very much fit into ways that I was essentially self-medicating. The interactions, the short context, and interacting with people and gaining knowledge and then going and sharing it with others. And it was all of that fed and was able to kind of, I wouldn't say self-medicate in some ways, but I was able to kind of build in some accommodations for myself into how I worked. And But that wasn't enough. As I adjusted to the medication, I found myself being able to shift easily between different tasks as needed, which I always could, probably too easily, but this time now I could actually remember to come back to what I had been doing before, and I didn't have to go, well, I don't remember what I was doing. That was a new thing, but it also highlighted my propensity to overwork and not take the breaks that I needed. Would find myself like doing more because I could now remember all the things I needed to do, and let's go do it. So I had to start to understand and learn to accept that some of my shortcomings weren't all my fault, and also that the diagnosis was an explanation but not an excuse for the ways that I was living my life, the ways that I was working. So when I understood how my mind worked, I was able to start to embrace, my ADHD. Generally, people with ADHD, they excel when taking, kind of that bird's eye view look and analyzing a lot of potential kind of what ifs and hypotheticals. But also sometimes that can be a detriment when all those things become tangents. With so much incoming data, it is hard to focus on one thing in particular. So it does enable divergent thinking on a lot of different things with creativity and problem-solving ability, so it can come in handy, but it also has the detriment of probably overworking. And I also started going to therapy. If you don't go to therapy, I think everybody should, and this is not, an endorsement for big therapy. I don't know that there is a big therapy, but if there's a big pharma, I'm sure there's probably big therapy. But it wasn't a very important thing for me to start to process and understand how my way of thinking and working, and also how my lack of thinking and working and coping since 2020 and really looking back really all my life was affecting me and those around me. It also helped me understand kind of deep down a lot of the different experiences that I'd had that I hadn't quite connected the dots between what they were and how they deeply affected me, and how I approached many different situations and communities and relationships with this type of thought. It has been a really good resource because it helped me dig into all of this and identify ways that work for me to get things done. And interest and ways that I could communicate better with those around me. Therapists also introduced me to the idea of practicing mindfulness. Now, who knows what mindfulness is? Okay. So mindfulness is, it's really this, here the Mayo Clinic actually says, it is this, it's a type of meditation. You're focusing on being really aware of what you are, sensing and feeling in that moment. So if there's a trigger of maybe you realize that you start babbling, think about what that trigger is. What is it that's going on? Maybe there's your body might be getting really tense. Seeing what the triggers are, your body is actually a really good indicator of something that's going on. And so being able to look at that, figuring out some ways to relax and really engage with the world around me. And so working on that really also helped me to dive deeper into some of those other experiences. One of the biggest triggers for me, and maybe it might be for you as well, was that whenever I'd start to feel anxious about something, so whether that was out of control or didn't know what was planned, or I didn't know what was about, what are we going to do? We're going on vacation. What are we going to do? And that kind of spiral, understanding that, overwhelming with tasks, that I would start to feel a bit off. That came sometimes, I would feel my heart start to race a little bit. Maybe sometimes even break out into not a full sweat, but just a little what's going on? I started to sense what that was and could start to identify, okay, wait, I'm just feeling a little out of control. I don't know what's going on. Now let me stop and take a breath and think. So I was able to kind of look at that. Now, he also helped me to start to recognize that what had happened, identify what I was feeling, was going on around, turn that into taking a few moments to breathe, write down what I was doing. I'm terrible at journaling. But taking those moments to just write down something, even if it's on my phone, take it out, send a message to myself. okay, here's what happened, so I could process that. Get a glass of water. Anything that would break up that moment is a way to get your brain out of that spiraling. And then you can move forward and kind of analyze the situation. Now, a couple things that I want to kind of get here, and we're getting towards the end, is that I say all this because cut yourself some slack. Be open, tell your story. It's okay to tell your story. It's okay to have to deal with these things. It doesn't have to hold you back. Talk to someone, get help. There are a lot of resources available. There is look at some of the suggested kind of coping mechanisms that came from a number of different places. Everything from planners, to-do lists, reminders can help. Use your, whether it's Apple or Google, use the, hey, remind me to do this. Set something on your calendar, block out time, have little timers that go off that set, the Pomodoro technique of setting a timer that, okay, now go do something else. Danny Donovan has a great book to help on that. Practice mindfulness, as I said. Get your sleep. Now, people with ADHD have different sleep patterns. Going back to me reading book for 2 days and not sleeping for 2 days, that's still a thing for me. Exercise, eat a healthy diet, all those things can help getting your body, in your brain, the things they need to start dealing with some of the things you have and help give you the thing. Connect with others who understand the challenges. I'm not saying you got to go find a support group, but talk with your friends, share your story, see what other people are doing. Seek professional support from therapists or, ADHD coaches. There are those out there, and they are very helpful. There are some other ways to kind of cope, especially with hyperactivity, like shaking legs. When you're sitting, is one way to just kind of get some of that energy out. It's a physical energy. Now, my kids are like, okay, stop, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, but it's a little trick. They've learned to say, hey, stop, and it's like, okay, now I can go and do something else. I can kind of break out of that. Engaging activities involve hand movements. I mean, that the whole fidget spinners, they work for a lot of people. Some people they don't, but that is a real thing that can help transfer that energy into some activity and can keep your brain engaged. Standing while working can provoke movement, so get a standing desk, but also make sure you stay at the standing desk. I tend to all of a sudden sit down, and then I haven't stood up while I'm working for months, and then, oh yeah, stand up. Chewing gum can also provide kind of that sensory input that can help your brain start to, that motion can now get your brain to think about other things. It's amazing how that kind of helps with concentration. There are a lot of resources available. And these are just the tip of the iceberg. CDC, World Health Organization, there's a lot. ADHD Programmers is actually a fun Reddit to get on, but there's a lot of people sharing their stories there, some little tips. There are, and I will say this, I have not, with the changes that have happened, and I probably should have, that have happened in the last few weeks, National Institute of Health and the benefits.gov did have, at the time of me kind of gathering some of this, did have those resources available. Good to check, because the government does have a lot of resources for people with ADHD that they can take into account. And at your job, and I'm going to say this, there's a number of others here, but I'll end on this. With your job, there are still rules in place that if you can seek an accommodation, and this is not as an excuse, but it is seek an accommodation for a thing, whether that's you need a standing desk, or you really struggle with executive function and you're working with a therapist, but you need an accommodation to be able to work. Talk to HR about what accommodations are available. They're a resource for you. Now, HR is a resource for the company to protect them. They're not your friend. But there are resources available to make use of them. Yeah, Stack Overflow blog, they actually had a great, the one at the bottom, they actually had a great kind of podcast series on this. So if you're in tech, there's a lot of really good resources there. With that, that is all I have. Get help, ask questions, and you know, be one of us. I just kind of made that one up on the end. It might stick. So, any questions? Yeah. Well, actually, we need a
second. Let me run over there.
So while he does that, I'm going to take a drink.
While he's taking his break, let's give him a round of applause. It's great coming out and putting yourself out there like this. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Just want to know if the slide deck's going to be available.
Yes, I will be posting this. Yeah, I will be posting. I'm not going to eat it. Yes, I will be posting those out. I will share. I know that Scale, we can upload ours. I think they'll give us something we can upload it to. So you'll be able to go back to it. I will get that. This is my second talk this week, and I was supposed to share slides from another one earlier this week. I still haven't. ADHD, hi. So yes, I will get them shared out. They'll be on the Scales page, as well as I will share those on Blue Sky as well, and probably LinkedIn. But yes, they will be available. Absolutely. Anyone else? Yeah.
Sir, sorry. Can you raise your hand?
Right here. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. And while it's going there, let me say this before you ask this question. Sorry. If you're here and you think, you know what, this might answer questions for me, or you know what, I had one talk, I gave this once, and a parent came up and said, you know what, I've been wondering if my child, if this is something that might be for her, and I've just kind of been putting this off, but now I need to go do it. Get her in and let's talk about it. Another guy said that one of his sons had been diagnosed, and he wondered about the other one. And I don't say it in here, but ADHD they're finding it is generally genetic. Yeah, if that answers questions for you, definitely get that. Like, go contribute to help your kids. Yes.
All right, so I'm not sure how to phrase this, but because I'm thinking more general. But so like I know for me, when I'm in certain like being on call is beautiful because I interrupt my day, I solve a problem, and I'm done, and it's great. There's other aspects of like working in the technology field, like just writing a resume is my Achilles heel in a lot of ways. Do you have any thoughts on things that you've found to help with, I guess just generally the stuff that you hate doing?
So I can't say don't do them. That was meant to be a joke, but I sometimes actually do say don't do them. There are, I would say, look at some of the resources. I would actually look, Danny Donovan's, I wish I remembered what it's called. It's on her website, ADHD-DD.com. But there are workbooks to that you start your day with, and saying, okay, I need to get this done, and I need to do that. Like that's helped me at least to just write down, beginning of the day, here's what I need to do. In terms of like some of the more menial tasks, kind of like you mentioned writing resumes and those kind of things. Paige Bailey from Google wrote a article about how she actually has used Gemini, which of course she works at Google, but has used AI to help with some of those tasks. And for her, it was, here's all the tasks I have to do. And here, because there was she had a lot of GitHub issues and others to deal with. And so she said, okay, I want to try and automate some of this so that it removes some of the noise and brings the signal for what I really have to do. Yes. So that can be a way. It's not always a way, but I would look at something like that might help bring some of those tasks up to the forefront. Also, if you can get it if you can get something done when you think about it, get it done then. The more opportunity you have, and I have, to say, you know what, I'm going to do that later, means I'm going to come back to it and go, I'm going to do that later. So when you're thinking about it, if you can do that, do it then. Especially if it's something you can do really quickly, just get it done. That's a muscle you have to exercise, but I would look at that. You kind of have to find that thing that works for you. If you're able to do therapy, that is good, that at least to just help think through some of those things. But I would look at some of those resources on just how to figure out some of the planning pieces. Yeah, there's not a silver bullet as much as there just really isn't, and that's, yeah. Any other questions? And I'll pop out in the hallway. I know we're getting close. Right? Yeah. So that one, and then there's a guy in the black shirt here. Yes.
Hi there. I totally related to you when, you said parents that they just think it's made up, and then you go through the whole medical procedure, and they tell you meds and all that. But how do you explain in a work situation, like when you're developing, that you need to advocate for yourself? How did you advocate for yourself in work situations?
Advocating for yourself at the job is I don't have a great answer for that. And the reason being is that the job I was at the time was a whole lot more sensitive to that, and I didn't have to advocate for it. So I think that goes also to where I said, look at what the resources are that your company has. Look for your ERGs. If you're at a company that has some employee resource groups, that's a great way to look at it. Some of these resources have some things for you with your company. The Workplace Accommodations Guide is a great one. ADHD Workplace Accommodation Guide, that can give you some pointers for that. Advocating for yourself is very, very difficult, and I would look at some of those resources. I'd be happy to talk a little bit deeper into that afterwards. Yeah, next question. And I think this might, unless we have one more, got one more after this. Yeah.
So with ADHD, I know hyperfocusing is a thing. If you hyperfocus, how do you manage task switching?
So the Pomodoro technique that is used, if you're going to do a task, set a timer that goes off. That physical thing that happens, whether it's the ding, something that gets your brain to break a little bit, and then you go on to the next thing. Set those blocks of time can be very helpful. That's also where mindfulness does kind of come in as well. So when you start to get into that hyper focus, recognizing the trigger, and then what are you going to do with it? So those are some techniques. Again, I would say look at the Pomodoro way can be very helpful. And if you don't use that, use something that will that kind of breaks your concentration. Everybody has something that kind of breaks their concentration. Find whatever that is. You know what it is, or you probably have an idea. Use something like that as part of that time box, so that at that point you can step to the next. That's one way. Yes. Last question.
That actually was where I was going to go, is because I noticed that a lot of the presentation you were talking about the inattentiveness side of things, and I was curious more about if your personal experience with the identification of hyper-focusing being a part of the experience, as well as identifying ways of taking personal responsibility of that, because it's when you don't really realize that it's something that you're personally dealing with, it's kind of hard to like break out of that and also like take personal responsibility
Yeah.
for it and let the irritability get a handle on you. So I was curious to see if you had any of your own personal experience to share on that.
From my experience on that, it's having somebody, whether that's a partner, whether that's a family member, a friend, that in those moments that you trust them enough to say, hey, you know what? Help me in this. If you see this, just say something. That's helpful. I've started to notice, like, I was even thinking as you were asking questions, I was doing like that, like I have certain tics that when I realize I'm getting to that point where I'm getting a little hyperactive, or I might just have a little bit more energy. I've started to recognize those, but it's come from friends and partner and whatever that have said, what you're doing now, what are you thinking? Even it's just the question of, hey, what are you thinking right now? And that breaks a little bit of that focus, hyper focus in that moment, but it also causes me to think a little bit of like, oh, I don't know what I was thinking. But as I start to get more introspective, going, okay, well, there's something that's a trigger. Let me explore that a little bit. And then talking to a therapist around that too, getting to help with, okay, I'm noticing this. How do I deal with it? They have great insight into how to kind of take that next thing. But it is, find somebody that can be open with it, or to just say, hey, I'm feeling this. Or if you respond really quick to somebody and you didn't mean it to be the way it was, it just comes out of that hyperactivity, it is okay for you to say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. Here's what I was feeling, and readdress it. And if they can't take that, then work on a conversation with it. But it really is that accepting for yourself that is a part of you, and work with somebody you trust to how you take steps. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, and I'll be in the back.
One more time for Jeremy, please. Thank you.